Welcome to the channel. My name is Matthias. Today we're going to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which happily I was really surprised because it was fantastic. Because in general, Marvel Phase 4 was really rough. Like this movie, the third Spider-Man flick, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, that one was pretty great, even though there were some things that I really didn't like about that one. Same thing with the second Black Panther movie, Wakanda Forever. We're not here to talk about those. We're going to talk about Guardians 3 that God, I feel like James Gunn really got to show off his vision for this team. This movie goes hard with the James Gunn isms, but you have a really good story there with a lot of heart. So let's not waste more time. Let's get into the breakdown. So first, the heroes. I feel like Mr. Gunn really knows what makes these heroes tick in general, the whole team. This particular movie really gets into the origins of Rocket. So obviously the narrative revolves around him. And I have to say that his origin story in the MCU, it's really great. It's very well done. It's not as good as the retcon origins that we got by Donny Cates in his run on Guardians, but what we get here just really leads to a fantastic story. Now, we have a character on the team that really gets some fantastic character development during this movie. It's Nebula. It's incredible that Mr. Gunn has made me care about Nebula because in the comics, I really, really don't care for her. Another character that I find irritating in the comics, but here within the Guardians flicks, I really like her, is Mantis. And I really love her relationship with Drax, how those two characters interact. It's really great. Then we have Star-Lord, who's dealing with the loss of Gamora, because the one that we have in this movie is from a different timeline. He's really broken about this whole situation. Now he's dealing with the possible death of Rocket Raccoon, and you can feel like this is really weighing on him. So we get some really good dramatic moments, surprisingly, between Star-Lord and a CGI raccoon. Now, for the side characters, I wanted to talk about Rocket's friends, the characters that we get or are creations of James Gunn for this movie. They're really fantastic, and you know that Gunn is going to just set you up for this really terrible gut punch further down the line in the story. Now, let's get into the villain, High Evolutionary. Now, the High Evolutionary that we got in this movie, he's sort of like the High Evolutionary in the comics and not like the High Evolutionary in the comics at the same time. High Evolutionary has been always poorly written. I don't know how to put it. Like, each writer that comes in writes this character totally different. So his personality and the way he acts oscillates a lot from story to story, but maybe one constant theme with the High Evolutionary is that he's this benevolent despot, or that he always sees himself as a benevolent despot. Sometimes he's just a total douchebag. And if a experiment just goes wrong, he just wipes the slate clean. He has no issues with that. Here, the High Evolutionary that we get in this movie, he's more cynical and straight up evil, and the actor that plays the role just does a fantastic job. You really, really, really hate High Evolutionary as this movie progresses. I feel like it's a real shame that they didn't build up this character more like they did with Thanos and have him be the big bad to Phase 4 or Phase 5. The High Evolutionary that we get here feels like he can work on a cosmic level just like Thanos. Like, he had created multiple civilizations and he could just destroy them at his own whim. So he feels dangerous in this story. The High Evolutionary that we got in this movie is much more interesting than the Kang that Marvel had been building up during this time. And just in case, spoilers, he's the creator of Rocket, and his relationship with Rocket when he's really young, it's really messed up. I'm not going to get into the details because this movie is worth watching, but you're happy when he gets his comeuppance. Now, for the direction of the movie, I feel like, again, Gunn just gave us his final vision for the Guardians. This movie is surprisingly dark and bleak when it needs to, but at the same time, it has a lot of heart. There's some really good funny moments. The humor doesn't undercut the dramatic moments, which is very important, something that Taika has to learn. The action in general, it's pretty great, and this movie is surprisingly violent at moments and gory. That really caught me off guard. There's actually like two really disturbing scenes that they're great within the context of the flick, but like my 12-year-old was like, "Whoa, what happened there?" Now, the plot in general, as I mentioned earlier, we get the origins of Rocket Raccoon. We learn that he's tied to the High Evolutionary. Now, Rocket's dying, and the High Evolutionary is like the only key to save Rocket's life. Those are like very, very broad strokes. But the thing is, when the Guardians try to find out who the High Evolutionary is and get this information, they discover how much of a danger to the cosmos he is. Now, for moments that really surprised me in this movie, it does have its moments. Like the big one is what happens to Rocket's friends. Like that one's a real gut punch. And I'm really surprised that it hits you in the feels and you get really sad with this really dramatic situation that we have with Rocket. Now, for the soundtrack, like all of James Gunn's movies, they have fantastic soundtracks. There's a lot of really great needle drops. Maybe for me, this one isn't as good as the previous movies, even though the song from Space Hog and where he puts it is like really epic. And now for the negative, like I have two nitpicks. Adam Warlock, I don't understand why he was put in this movie. He's just this bumbling idiot during the whole thing. Even though I thought it was super cool at the end of the movie where we discover that Adam Warlock really likes King Crimson. That's like a real deep cut on a musical level. And this is very minor, but like aesthetically, the look that we get for Groot, I really don't like it. I like the old school Groot, the thin and tall one. Now, I'll give this movie a score of 28. And thinking about it, I think it's the best of the Guardians movies. I'm not sure. I would have to think that over, but I'm going to leave this video here. I hope you guys liked it. See you guys next time. Bye.